we'll go ahead and get started for today. Welcome to our third session out of a series of 4 of where mentoring and youth mental health meet. My name is Carol Frazier. I'm with the Jewish Healthcare Foundation, and we are so blessed to have this partnership with the Mentoring Partnership to be able to offer this community information series. As I said, this is our third session. We have one more session that was regularly scheduled. That was May 13th. But we're having a bonus session on April 29th too, which I'm happy to tell you more about. On Friday, April 29th, we're going to have a session in the morning from 9 to 11. And that session will be presented by Still Smiling. And in this bonus session, we're focusing on tips for boosting mental health and well-being. And we're going to put that into practice with a guided exercise around creating a mental health well-being safety plan. So as a result of that session, you'll be able to leave with a safety plan that you could use for yourself and know how to work with youth and assist them in creating their own safety plan. As usual, what often happens is we get so excited about how much we want to offer. We couldn't fit it all into 4 sessions. So we are offering this bonus session, and we hope you'll be able to attend. You can already register for that in the same way that you could register for our final series session, which will be on the intersection of physical health and mental health. Next slide. This is our team. As I said, my name is Carol Frazier. I am from the Jewish Healthcare Foundation, or the Pittsburgh Regional Health Initiative, which is the operating arm of the Jewish Healthcare Foundation. And I'm going to ask the other members of the team to introduce themselves. Michelle, do you want to go first?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelle Thomas. I'm the Director of Training and Program Development with the Mentoring Partnership. I'm thrilled to be one of the leaders on this series in collaboration with the other wonderful folks, faces that you see here. So thanks so much for being here. And a shout out to our guests today who will be either speaking or presenting. Thank you as well.
Yeah, and then I am Sophia Duck, the Training and Engagement Manager from the Mentoring Partnership, who has also been appreciating these conversations, and you'll get a chance to hear a little bit more from me as I facilitate the youth panel a little bit later in our conversation today. So I'll turn it over to Deborah.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Deborah Murdock, a Program Manager with the Jewish Healthcare Foundation. I work on our Teen Mental Health Initiative, and this has been such a enriching and enlightening series. We're really looking forward to this afternoon session.
Next slide. We do want to recap our last session for you. We were fortunate to have representatives from Repair the World and Center of Life with us to talk about how they make space within their current programming for teen mental health. And some takeaways that we got from that session from them were to give youth space to express themselves in different ways, using different mediums and an outlet to process their emotions. And that could be around anything that was happening in their communities, in the world, on a regular basis. We also had a takeaway that the organizations really followed the youth lead and took to really take their agency as one of the most important things they can do, to allow the youth to set their own agenda for their discussions and their time together with adults. Also at that session, we were pleased to have with us, next slide, Candice Biernesser, who is a postdoctoral fellow from the University of Pittsburgh. And she talked with everyone about fostering safe and healthy online spaces for youth. She had some really great tips for adults and teens. And you can access the recording for those, for that session. I believe someone already put it in the chat. Thank you. And also the handouts that were part of that session. Next slide. We're very pleased today at our third session to have Erin Barr with us. She is the clinical coordinator of UpStreet, which is a new and innovative program occurring through the through the Jewish Youth and Family Services. And she's here to talk to us a little bit about UpStreet. She is the clinical coordinator, and she will be telling us a little bit about the work of UpStreet and also the role of peer supports at UpStreet. In addition to Erin, we're very, very excited to have a youth voice panel who's here to answer questions about teen mental health, what adults can do to support teen mental health, what it's like for them to be involved as peer supports in organizations that they're involved with. So we're very excited to have them here. And hopefully, if we have time, the other adults on the call will be able to ask them questions too. Sophia is going to facilitate a panel with them following Erin's presentation. So welcome everybody, sit back, relax, and enjoy our time together this afternoon. So Erin, I will turn it over to you.
Great. Good, I did unmute myself. Thank you, Carol, for the introduction, and it's nice to be here with all of you today. So I'm here to talk about UpStreet, specifically our peer mentoring program, but I am also going to tell you a little bit about UpStreet in general. So let me see, I think you can go on to the next slide. So like Carol said, UpStreet is the teen and young adult mental health service of Jewish Family and Community Services. We're part of that larger organization, and we work with people between the ages of 12 and 22 in and around Allegheny County. Most of our clients, most of the schools, most of the people that we're working with are within Allegheny County, but because we do provide virtual services, we kind of have a really broad reach, and we have people from all over Western Pennsylvania that we work with for therapy. So this slide, I don't think this is surprising information to anyone. We know right now that teens are in crisis. If you pay attention to the news, if you're on social media, if you are on the internet, you're hearing all about this. I do have some stats here. I think the 20% stat that's listed there, that's common. I mean, that's like a typical stat you hear about young people and just mental health in general. The one in the top right corner, the 37% of high school students that are, experiencing, sorry, I'm losing control of my own slides here, that are experiencing more mental health or poor mental health is a very recent survey that the CDC put out. So that's specifically from, I think it was January to June of 2021. I think there's a lot of things involved with that. Concern about teen mental health had been on the rise to begin with, and then the pandemic really exacerbated a lot of those symptoms and contributed to more significant experiences and concerns about teen mental health in general. You can go to the next slide, please. So the gist of our service model at UpStreet is to provide barrier-free mental health. We want to make it as easy as possible, as accessible as possible for young people to access support when and if they need it. And you can see their barrier-free means a lot of things, but particularly through some of the services I'll talk about in a minute, teens are able to get almost instant support or very quick support through the chat we offer on our website. Other barriers, typical barriers to mental health treatment are things like transportation, not having enough money to pay for it, not having the right insurance that the therapist is able to bill, and sometimes even not having parents or adults in the young person's life that are willing to support them in their mental health journey. And these are all things that UpStreet's able to almost eliminate altogether. Again, because we're virtual, you don't need to get a ride, you don't have to go anywhere, you just need a device, a phone, a laptop, any kind of thing connected to the internet, and you can have access to our therapists. Because we provide everything at no cost, payment doesn't really become an issue. And that also means that young people ages 14 and older are able, I mean, any young person in Pennsylvania 14 or older is able to consent to their own mental health treatment. That gets a little trickier if the therapist expects to be paid for the services or they're billing the insurance company, because then parents sort of are brought into the loop because of those things. But UpStreet doesn't really run into that difficulty. And that's not to say that we don't work with parents and we don't have clients who come with their parents or that are supported by their parents, but it's not always the case. Yeah, I think I covered all of that. So you can go to the next slide, please. And just a quick slide about introducing our team. So we are essentially a team of 4 people. Me as the coordinator of the program. We have 3 full-time therapists. Just a little background about them. Aaliyah has quite a bit of experience in trauma. She came from a victim services agency prior to working with us. So she's sort of, I mean, we all have training in trauma, but Aaliyah is really the expert in trauma. Shelby came from a domestic violence service prior to working with us. So she has a lot of experience in healthy relationships and navigating some domestic violence situations, as well as crisis work. And Stephanie has done quite a bit of work with neurodiverse populations. So kids and young adults on the spectrum in school settings, in outpatient settings, and camp settings as well. So we have a nice variety. And in addition to these 4 full-time therapists, we currently have 4 graduate students that work with us and provide services in all levels of our programming. So we don't picture them because they rotate quite regularly. So we just have our full-time staff here. Next slide, please. Okay, so we offer a bunch of different things, but if we're sort of trying to narrow it down to the 3 main service arms of UpStreet. The first is our brief support, which I think is something that does set us apart from other organizations. We do offer on our website chat-based support, which means that any young person between the ages of 12 and 22, I mean, really from anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, can come to our website and talk to one of our therapists, talk to one of us. It's not meant to be a crisis line, but again, it's meant to create barrier-free, accessible services. Young people are really great at a lot of things. High school students have lots of skills and excel in many areas of life, but sometimes, you know, picking up a phone and making a phone call or scheduling and keeping appointments aren't strong suits all of the time. And you don't need to worry about that with our brief support. You can just, whenever you feel like it, whenever you have a question, whenever you're not sure, whenever you're struggling or you had a bad day, our therapists are available. The chat line is open Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Saturday and Sunday from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. So quite a bit outside of typical like business hours, because that doesn't always jive with students because they're in school during many of those hours and have lots of activities and things going on. So we try to make ourselves as available as possible without working 24 hours a day. There are other services in the area that provide that crisis 24-hour support. So we're not trying to recreate the wheel. We also have scheduled counseling, individual counseling, which is probably what people are most familiar with in terms of mental health treatment. And so in that type of setting, a young person is matched with a therapist. They see the same person consistently, typically weekly, for about an hour or so, and work on mutually agreed upon goals to sort of see signs of progress and work towards becoming experts of their own experience and helping them develop skills and strengths to sort of, get through the challenges that they're facing. I think I always like to say the goal of therapy is not to like fix everything and make all of the tough stuff go away, because that's not very realistic. But the idea of therapy is to help make the tough stuff a little easier to deal with, or get a little bit more comfortable sitting with it and experiencing some of those feelings, and then being confident that the young person has the ability to move through it with or without some support. But That's sort of the idea of therapy. And then the reason we're all here today is really to talk about more our peer mentoring program. So our peer mentoring program, which there's another slide about that, but it is a text-based program. So our mentors and mentees text back and forth with each other. And you can go to the next slide, please. So they are, and it's a peer mentoring program. So it's young person to young person. Our mentors are not adults. We do have one mentor that is in her early 20s, and that was because we had someone seeking a mentor that was had already graduated from high school and was, maybe 19 or 20 themselves. So we recruited an older mentor to work with that individual. But for the most part, the rest of our mentors are high school students, and the people that they're mentoring are a few grades younger than they are. The idea being that while adults are very good at supporting teenagers and high school students, we're not teenagers or high school students. And so there's a whole piece of their experience about their existence that we just can't relate to in a current moment, right? I mean, we were all in high school at one point, but for some of us that was many years ago, and it's a very different world now. And so having the support of a young person that's not so far away from the experiences that you're having right now, that maybe has been through some of their own challenges and can offer some guidance or some moral support or serve as a role model to their mentee, that seemed to be something that is pretty important, I think, and something that's been pretty well received. So you can go to the next slide. We do offer training to our mentors before it's part of like their acceptance into the program and before they're able to start working with their mentee. We did offer a training on mental health, since we are a mental health based service. Again, the mentors don't need to have their own mental health journeys or be in recovery from mental health or really have ever even needed to be in therapy, but have some experience with it. Maybe it's a family member, maybe they struggled with some undiagnosed depression or had some rough spots in their life that they feel they've come out of on the other side. And so we wanted to make sure we provided training around mental health. And we had our partner, Danielle Borish from Stand Together, provide that training. It's something similar to a mental health first aid type of training for those of you that are familiar with that, but it's meant for teenagers or meant for high school students. And it talked a lot about, things to look for or things to be aware of if your mentee starts talking about particular things, how to respond to difficult situations, how to keep boundaries with the mentee, and about share how much of your own experience feels right to share with them, and keeping the line between they're not friends. This isn't a friendship that we're setting up. It's a peer mentoring relationship. And so working a lot on boundaries, and also when to call in backup. When does the conversation reach a point where that mentor is not comfortable handling it, and when to escalate it to one of the staff. We also did a peer mentor training, which the mentoring partnership, Sophia, provided that training for us. And that talks, typical things, right? What it means to be a mentor, the role of a mentor, what mentors are not, expectations, the various stages of a mentoring relationship. They had the opportunity to go through practice scenarios. So what if your mentee says this, how do you respond? How do you validate them? How do you support them in a helpful way? And we also provided training on our software platform. So I think it's important to mention that it is a text-based mentoring program, but the mentors send all of the messages through a software program on a laptop computer, right? Which allows us as the UpStreet staff to see all of the conversations. We know what they're talking about. We can reach out to the mentors if things are getting a little sticky. We can make sure that nothing gets inappropriate and they're not making plans to meet up with each other or do things together that don't seem appropriate for young people to be doing. And I think that that's a relief to parents, knowing that we're not just partnering their precious kid with some random person and then not knowing what goes on and having no oversight over it. So it just allows us to keep abreast of whatever the conversations are about. But it did require some training because it's a little bit of a different system, right? It's not a cell phone. So they had to go through that training. The mentees, though, do get the messages on their phone, on their cell phones. And that also then they don't have each other's contact information. So they're not texting each other or being in touch with each other outside of that software platform. So it is all a very controlled environment. And as with all mentoring programs, we continue to support our mentors and mentees throughout. So they do the training and we're really involved with them at the beginning as they're going through all the paperwork and getting all that stuff in. And then we check in with them on a fairly regular basis, either through phone calls, email, texting, whatever feels more comfortable to them. And again, we're constantly looking at the conversations. So it does feel to us like we're very aware of what's going on. Okay, next slide. You know, I think looking at the conversations and trying to categorize some of the conversations and what are the most common things that are coming up. And it's these things, which I don't think is surprising, right? It's school, family, their own mental health, friendships. I mean, I was kind of giggling as I'm looking at some of these conversations. And if supporting a young person in calculus is not enough of a reason to have a peer mentoring program, I mean, who among us adults could truly support a young person going through a calculus class right now? Like, it's just not something. It was a long time ago if we ever took calculus. But that, you know, the mentor wasn't that long ago that they were in calculus. Maybe that was a class they took last year or the year before, and they can remember some of it and provide some advice. Also, I think, you know, talking about getting enough sleep, I think that feels different. If I were a 15-year-old and I have a 17-year-old telling me like that sleep is important and I really should try to not stay up all night. Or I think one of the mentees at one point was like, well, by that time it was 4 a.m. So I had to get up in 2 hours anyway. So I just decided, why not stay awake all night, right? And if your parent or a teacher is telling you that's not a great idea, it probably feels different than if a 17-year-old is like, oh yeah, I used to do that too, but you know what? It's really not such a great idea. It doesn't help anything. You should probably try to get some sleep. I think that's the power of a peer-to-peer relationship as opposed to an adult-to-peer relationship. And some others. I mean, I think this is pretty typical stuff, but some of the friendship stuff, who are my real friends, talking about insecurities that they have within the relationship, being supported in trying to set healthy boundaries with their friends and expressing sort of unhappiness or concern about some of the dynamics within the friendship relationship. That's something that's come up quite a bit with the mentors and their conversations with each other. In the next slide, please. I just have some quotes here, which I'm not, you know, hopefully you can see them well enough to read, just to give you a sense of what the experience has been like for some of the mentors and both the mentees. You know, someone who's separate from, I like that, someone who's separate from my life and also understands. Our mentors and mentees do not go to the same school, right? So this is not somebody that they're going to run into in the hallway. This is not somebody that knows them at school. This is somebody that only knows them in the context of the mentoring relationship, which I think is one of the developmental challenges of teenagehood, is figuring out like who I am in this world and how I exist in the many different systems and the many different parts of the world that I'm involved with, and being supported in that is really powerful. And having somebody outside of school and giving that young person really the opportunity to figure out who they are and to try on different parts of themselves or try out new things and different beliefs that they have, and being able to do that in a safe environment where there's no fear of that backlash or like people talking about them because they don't go to the same school. So they're really anonymous in some ways. And then that is about it. The last slide there, if you want to go to that, is just my contact information, which I'm sure will be shared if it hasn't already been after the presentation or at some point during this. So that's UpStreet.
Thanks, Erin. We did have a couple questions in the chat. I think you answered one of them. One was from Sue Caffrey. Is scheduled counseling program designed to be short-term, or can it be more long-term, especially to address trauma?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's as long as it needs to be. So we don't have any limits, and there's no regulating body or any one or thing dictating how long therapy lasts for. So it lasts until the client and the therapist agree that the progress has been made and they're ready to either step down from less frequent sessions. Often, you know, you start at weekly, then down to every other week, maybe a monthly check-in, and then closure, and then the therapy session ends. But we don't have any, there's no limit. So we don't say like, we'll see you for 6 sessions and then that's the end of it. It just depends on the client.
Is the face-to-face counseling all telehealth then, or can people come into it?
So a little bit of both. For the predominant part of the last 2 years, it's all been telehealth or virtual sessions, just because we are, as an agency, have not yet fully returned to the office. But when it felt appropriate and when it worked for the client and the therapist, our therapists have been seeing people in person as needed. We do have plans to return to the office more regularly starting next month, so that'll open up again as well.
And is that face-to-face counseling still at no cost to the
Yes.
young?
Yep.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We do have a comment too that some youth might open up more by text than in front of someone else, or
Absolutely.
until they can open up.
Yep, very true, which is why, and I have to say, like, it's worth mentioning that the peer mentoring program was always going to be text-based. COVID had nothing to do with that decision, because for that exact reason, like, it just feels like a developmentally appropriate way for young people to communicate with each other. I think they feel sometimes much more comfortable than we as adults are texting people or talking to somebody that we've never met in person or that we don't really know. Although I think maybe all of us have gotten a little more comfortable with that over the last 2 years. But yes, that was always part of our plan. I see this question about mandatory reporters.
Yeah.
The mentors, that's a good question. That's a good question. I don't think that they are because it's not a job, it's a volunteer opportunity. That being said, we do talk about reporting abuse, and that's part of the training that we go through. And we are seeing all of the conversations. So if something were to come up that felt like we are all mandated reporters, so things would be reported as necessary.
Hi, I'm the clinical director. I work with Erin. Hi. I actually believe, because most of the mentors are not adults, that also matters, because all mandated reporters are adults, not children or teens. So it could change as they get older, but it's a job and age related issue. But it is an excellent question, and one that could change in the future.
Any other questions or comments for Erin? Guess a question I would have, Erin, might be, how many are most of your youth from Allegheny County? I would assume so, but do you get many youth from outside of Allegheny County too? I know there was a question about, and you answered that anyone could call in, but what does some of your demographic data look like?
Yeah. So for the chat or the brief support, it's hard to know, but that's much more of a variety of locations that people are coming from. The chat software that we use does give us a location. It's not always accurate, but we know that people are coming from all over Pennsylvania and out of state as well, and sometimes out of the country. We've had people from like London, Uganda, places somewhere in the Middle East somewhere. But for therapy clients, most of them are within Allegheny County, but we do have some in surrounding counties. I'm thinking particularly Westmoreland County, Lawrence County, probably Butler County, and potentially Beaver County as well, just off the top of my head. And for them, the telehealth is the best option, because they aren't getting a ride into, right? Like, so maybe I think in most cases, their parents aren't necessarily on board or weren't willing or able to get them to therapy on a weekly basis. So being able to just do it from home on their phone or their computer has really made therapy and mental health services much more accessible to them.
Then we have another question. Is there any hurdles with children contacting you from a different state?
Typically, no, but in the case where there would be a crisis situation or there would be like a mandated reporting situation, it gets a little trickier for us, because we have to then find out who's the local resource to call if there's a crisis situation. I did have to call the crisis line in Youngstown, Ohio at one point. I mean, Google usually helps with that. And typically when they're talking to us on the chat, we can call in for backup, right? Since we're not on the phone with somebody and somebody's not in our office, often we'll text each other like, hey, do you see this conversation? Can you find a crisis line in Ohio or West Virginia? So thanks to the internet, we're usually able to find what we need, but that does make it more difficult because we're just not as familiar with resources and services outside of Western Pennsylvania.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Erin?
Erin, can you just talk a little bit about what the time commitment is for peer mentors and how you recruit them and what kind of characteristics maybe you're looking for?
Sure, that would have been helpful. Good, I should have put that in my slide. So the time commitment for the mentors upfront is a little heavy because it's paperwork, it's getting reference letters from teachers, it's getting your parents to sign something if you're under 18, and then the training. I think the training totaled about 8 hours of training between all three. So it's heavy up front. And then we do encourage the mentors, and we make the mentees aware of this also, to put some boundaries around their availability. It's a little easier for the mentors because they have to like log into a computer system or like a software program. It's not just on their phone. We didn't want the mentors to become crisis support where they're constantly being texted by their mentee and feeling like they have to respond, or for the mentee to feel like my mentor's not responding to me. So we asked them to say like, so Monday and Thursday between 6 and 8, I'll be available, or I'll get in touch with you on this day. I think sometimes it changes based on their schedules, but from what I see in the conversations, they sort of set that up like, hey, I'll be available like on Sunday. You want to check in again then? So we ask for like the mentors to be in touch at least twice a week with their mentees, schedule permitting. So I don't think it's too much of a time commitment. And it's certainly some easier because I think they can do it from home, right? Like they can do it on their way to or from track practice, as long as they're not driving themselves, obviously, but it's something they can sort of like be doing while doing homework in the background. It can happen simultaneously with other things.
Great.
And we recruit them from everywhere, schools, youth serving programs. If anybody on this call has people in mind that they think would make great mentors or could benefit from having a mentor, please reach out. We're always recruiting. We have sort of like a rolling enrollment into the program. So we find them anywhere that they are.
How many peer mentors do you have at this time?
We have 5 pairs right now. We wanted to start a little slow just to get things off the ground and not overwhelm ourselves as we were trying to launch our entire existence. UpStreet's only been in existence for like 1.5 years or so, but we are building capacity to serve many more because we think it's an important program and we think that there's a lot of value to it.
Well, thank you very much, Erin. You did put your contact information on the slide.
I did.
So that people will be able to contact you if later on they think of a question. But it sounds like it's really a great service for teens and for therapists too. It's nice to have a peer who they can kind of rely on to be in contact with a client too. It's kind of a good support for the therapist. Okay, thank you very much. And feel free to follow up with Erin if you have any additional questions in the future, or if you want to reach out about a possible referral, or even to get someone trained to be a peer mentor. Okay, and we're going to turn now to our youth panel, our highly anticipated youth panel, and Sophia Duck, who will be asking questions of the panel. So Sophia.
Yeah, so good afternoon, Erin. Thank you so much for sharing more with us about UpStreet and the peer mentoring program. So the transition is to hear from young people who are actually doing this work. So we have 3 young people, Tian Legrande, who is an 11th grader at Oakland Catholic High School. Mohammed Shadid, is an 11th grader at South Fayette High School. And then Luna Plaza, who is a senior at Pittsburgh Kappa. So those 3 individuals are here, and I'm going to actually ask them to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about the programs they are working with as our first question to get started. So the way this conversation will happen is we have a few questions that we think are helpful and that we have the young people prepared to answer. But if you have additional questions while our young people are talking, feel free to add those to the chat. And our amazing team will be monitoring those questions. We'll be able to also sprinkle those questions in too. But the focus of this is just giving our young people a chance to share. So their pictures were on the screen earlier, and now the 4 of us are pinned, so you can see us in all of our glory right now. So As I mentioned, I'm going to ask all three to introduce themselves a little bit and tell us about the program they are working with. So just in alphabetical order. Tian, do you mind getting us started?
I will. Hi, I am Tian Legrand. I am a peer mentor with the LEAD program, which is hosted by the Crossroads Foundation. And I've been a peer mentor since the beginning of this year. I mentor 3 freshmen currently, 5 actually, it just went up, 5 freshmen. And yeah, I really enjoy it.
Thanks, Tian. We'll get a chance to learn more about the why you enjoy it as we continue today. Mohammed, do you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Mohammed Shadid. I'm a junior at South Fayette High School. Some mental health organizations I'm a part of include Work to Be Well, which is a national organization run by youth, focused on youth. I'm also part of the NHS Facilitator Network for Mental Health, and I'm a lead facilitator, and I'm part of the Stand Together program at my school.
Ooh, there's a lot to talk about there. We appreciate your service and all the things that you're doing. So Luna, I'll turn to you. Do you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little bit more about the programs you're involved with?
Hi, my name is Luna. I'm a virtual pronunciation therapist at the I am president of our Stand Together program at CAPA. I'm also involved with the UpStreet network and a peer mentor with UpStreet.
Could you hear her, Sophia? I'm having.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Luna, it's a little bit more difficult to hear you, and it looks like you're on public transportation, so we definitely want to make sure that you stay safe. We do know that you are a part of UpStreet, and then there are some other programs. I don't know if Deborah or Kara, if you're willing to share all of the great things that Luna does.
Part of me would say, what isn't she involved with? But she is involved with the Pennsylvania Youth Activist Network. She was a youth leader for the foundation's advocacy leadership series, and she's involved with at least 1 or 2 organizations on the North Side. Do you know who's?
Urban Impact, as well as the Stand Together Club at Pittsburgh CAPA, Creative and Performing Arts School.
Yes.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you. So as you heard, 3 amazing young people. And before we jump into questions, I did want to make sure that we just say thank you on behalf of this committee and all of the amazing caring adults that are on the call. There's a lot of things you could have been doing this afternoon. We recognize that this is the end of the school day for you. So thank you for joining us today and being willing to share with us. So to get us started, one of the things that Erin talked about as part of preparing young people to serve as peer mentors was training. So can you all talk about the trainings or prep work that you did that was most helpful for you to help be successful as a peer mentor?
Yeah, start with Stand Together. So to be part of Stand Together, you're required to go through at least like 2 days of training, where you have a trainer come in and talk to you about specific ways to help people, youth who suffer from mental health disorders or substance use disorders, and the keys to communicating with them and to bringing greater awareness to that as well. And for Work to Be Well, there was also some training involved in becoming one of the members on the facility, including how to develop resources. And there were also specific trainings for any other additional certificates you wanted to achieve as well.
Thank you, Mohammed. Tian, are you ready to jump in for this question?
Yeah, I can. Hi, so at Crossroads for the LEAD program, we had an original training which lasted a few hours, which was very helpful and basically outlined everything that we were going to be expected to do as mentors, what was okay, what wasn't okay, and all of that. And what also I have found like really helpful is every week or 2, we have a meeting which covers more of like our mentor sessions and goes in more depth of what we should be doing and tackles different topics that are brought up along the way. So I thought the continuation of training was helpful.
That's awesome to hear, and very valuable, right? To have that continued support and that way to engage and to stay current too. So Luna, I want to turn to you if you feel comfortable. And you can get as close to your phone as possible. I'll ask you about the trainings that you also experienced prior to becoming a peer mentor.
Like I mentioned earlier, I was kind of working together, and like Monica was saying, how we have trainings and where it's trying to notice symptoms, not diagnose, something that really needs to be emphasized, and then of course in the training we also figure out what sort of projects we want to do. I'm also a volunteer at Urban Impact Foundation. We have volunteer trainings small programs.
So Luna, I feel like you're sharing some amazing insight, and I apologize because I don't think we can hear you as well now. Do you mind if I ask you, do you mind sharing in the chat what you can, and then I can read those out loud. That way we can still keep you engaged. Thank you so much, Luna. All right, so when thinking about training, and one of the things that was shared is that the mentoring partnership has a peer mentor training that we also deliver that really focuses on boundaries and thinking about how and something that Erin shared as well, is that idea of you're not being somebody's friend, but more so walking alongside them, right, and helping them and to be a support or a resource for them. So a question that I have for you all is, when talking with your peers, how do you know when to support, and sometimes it's just listening, or inform, which is the educator provides some type of resource or information, or the idea of referring them to that trusted adult or professional? So when you're talking with your peers, when do you know to support, inform, or refer, and what those situations may be?
I can start with this one. So for me, I kind of just pay attention to the conversation and I take in what they're saying to me. If it seems like something that they're asking for advice on, then I'm more than more than willing to give it. I'm always willing to help whenever I can. If it's something that I feel like is a little bit above me and it needs further support from an adult, then I'll reach out to one of my mentors or counselors to further assist that person. And yeah, and if it's something that they just want to talk to me, I'm all ears for that and ready to listen. So I kind of let them lead the conversation in that way.
Awesome, Tian, thank you. Letting them lead. And I think something that you said that's really important that we as adults forget is listening to see if they ask for advice before just jumping in to give it. So that's awesome. Mohammed, you look like you're ready to unmute.
Sorry. Yeah. So it definitely depends on the situation. If someone just has like a small outburst, they need to get something off their chest, or something that just happened recently, then that they're just venting. They just want someone to be there and listen to them. And they don't want advice most of the time. They just want to get it off their chest. If it seems like they've been struggling with something for a little while, they're not really sure how to get out of it, and like they're seeming like they want more advice or help, like they're coming to you for a reason, you can go down and inform them about possible resources that are available, such as online resources, online therapy, online curriculum, as well as your counselors at your school too. But if it gets to the point where you feel that this person is at the point where they're willing to hurt themselves or others, then it needs to be taken to an adult.
Awesome, Mohammed. Thank you. Thank you for breaking down the differences and really talking about the escalation of what may be a concern for your peer. And then Luna, I see that you responded. Thank you so much, right? So assessing the situation is very important. Always starting with listening, which is something that we remind adults to do, is just thinking about what that looks like, and then asking what they need. How can I be here to support you? If it appears that they do not feel comfortable having an adult or mental health professional involved, then I seek to just inform, right? So it's asking a question of what is going to make them comfortable. If it appears to be, so very similar to what Mohammed just mentioned, if it appears to be a crisis, I would refer them, and I may reach out as well if it appears to be a dire situation. So awesome. Thank you three for sharing those thoughts. So when we think about that, what I just mentioned, that boundary of being a peer versus being a friend, I am interested to know how you show up for your friends and building relationships within your program. So if you, or many of you are working at in programs at your schools. So how does that look to be able to establish and build trust with your friends and peers at school while also working within your programs?
I can start with this one. So for Stand Together at our school, it's focused like based on our school. So one of the projects we did was called like the Chain of Truth, where we allowed participants to write down something like they knew about mental health or like they were interested in learning about mental health, and they wrote it down. It was completely anonymous, and then we hung it around the school to display that. And then we also had QR codes posted around the school that served as links to potential resources that they needed. And just the notion that Stand Together is like notion is that like you are not, we stand together, you are not alone. So we really emphasize that notion with those QR codes and with advertising of this event.
That's awesome. The value of QR codes and being able to be anonymous is great. Thank you for sharing that, Mohammed. Tian, do you want to weigh in on this question?
Sure. I think in all my positions, what I try to do is be there without being the type of person to pry too much, or however, I like people to come to me and share what you're comfortable with, and I can give insight and help as I'm asked to. And I just kind of take it from there. For example, with my mentees, like I said before, I let them talk to me and I give what is asked of me. I'm vice president of my school's BSU, and in that situation, I talk to my other executive board members, and we all share ideas collaboratively, and we kind of build a relationship based on that. That's more of like a working relationship. And then with friends, it just be different, more casual. But it's important, I think, to make that distinction.
Awesome, thank you. It sounds very healthy separation of where you are within each of those relationships. And then I can read Luna's response. I support wherever I can, and I always make the effort to reach out when they need encouragement and hope. I love talking with my friends, feeding my friends, and hanging out with my friends. I'm an activist and I show up for my communities, and that includes my friends. In terms of building relationships with my peers at PA Youth Advocacy Network, we communicate and work very well together. It is a collective process and we operate as a consensus. We share our ideas and initiatives, and when we figure out our interests, we work together to meet our goals. Awesome. So again, thank you all, and really thinking about what it is to be so close in age to those that you are serving as mentors for, and being able to be respectful of your own personal boundaries. So let's dig a little. We're gonna, I see there's a question about self-care in there. So I'm gonna ask this question first, and then we'll come back to this idea of self-care. But this is a two-part question I have for you. How have the current events impacted your own mental well-being? And with that, what has the conversation about those current events been like, including the return to normalcy from the pandemic within your own circles? So how have current events, meaning the pandemic, war, the violence that has been happening locally, how has that impacted your own mental well-being? And then the second part of that question is, what has that conversation been like for you as a peer mentor with your peers that you are serving?
So I think it's created a lot of uncertainty and added stressors, which we don't need as high school students. But especially with COVID, assimilation back into society has shifted our like entire, it has caused us to adapt. It's forced us to adapt to things which we maybe forgot how to do previously because we haven't done it for like 2 years, such as learning in a traditional manner, socializing in a traditional manner, communicating with friends, hanging out, social gatherings. Which can lead to social anxiety by itself too. So relearning and readapting to assimilate back into society after that has created a lot of additional stress. And then the violence and war we see too causes there to be uncertainty over the future. And the thing that I guess we say in our inner circles is that it is okay to feel this way, to feel stressed, to feel uncertain about the future, to feel concerned, to feel overwhelmed, because everyone is going through it. It's not like you're the only one who's going through it and that you're alone. The entire world, the entire country, the entire world has gone through these events and is still going through these events. And so there are several teens out there who are in a similar position to you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Tina, I saw that you were going to unmute as soon as Mohammed did.
Yeah, so for me, the whole pandemic really caused me to be disorganized, which I tried to get back to because I feel like I'm doing my best work when I'm organized and on top of it. As far as my mentees go, they were in 6th, 7th grade when the pandemic started, and now they're in high school. And I feel like that's a big pressure. It's a big jump between being in middle school and high school. So I try to just advise them to not put so much pressure on themselves and to do their best. And in doing that, I feel as though they get the message and they're like, okay, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to, you know, have bumps on the road as long as you're able to adjust, pick back up, and keep the ball moving.
Right. So what I'm hearing from both of you, and Luna, I see that you're ready to chime in too, is this idea of validating feelings, right? Recognizing that it is okay to feel this way and that people are not alone, which are great statements to continue to repeat. So Luna, welcome back. I'd love to hear your voice.
Hi, could you hear me?
We can hear you now, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. That's great. Okay. So my answer to your question is we're living in a crisis even before the pandemic started. And I know personally the minute I got involved in community organizing, I couldn't stop. And so, but I know taking breaks is important. And I always try to take a break whenever I can because I don't want to work in a way that's just not healthy for me. And I think the best movements are the ones that are carefully planned out over time, not the ones where instant like gratification is glorified, because burnout is not good. And I think a lot of people are feeling burnout even like during the pandemic, especially, and transitioning back to school, that wasn't easy. But these conversations are happening, especially at my school, they're happening a lot, and they are very important. And it's comforting knowing that you're not alone in how you feel, and knowing that we can support one another even in times of crisis. So.
Great, thank you, Luna. So thank you for that reinforcement in saying that, yeah, there were some things that were stressful even prior to the pandemic. So with that, and Luna starts to set the stage for what are the things that we're doing for our own self-care. What are the things that you enjoy doing? What are the things that allow you to have those small breaks, as Luna just mentioned, or those intentional times that you know you're going to take off? And as the question that was presented earlier, what does self-care look like for you? So we'll give some time to really think about what that looks like. You guys all are taking care of yourselves. Yeah, Luna, you're by all means.
All right. I'm taking care of myself to a certain extent, but I just started joining wellness sessions yesterday, facilitated by Take Action Mon Valley, and the session was on racial injustice and how to process the trauma that comes with it. And after the first 2 sessions, I'm going to be setting up for what best meets my needs. There's a lot of sessions for people who've experienced injustice, whether it's police violence, school systems, criminal justice systems, housing, jail, prisons, or even those who have lost loved ones due to racial injustice. And there's sessions for people of color, activists, and youth, which is what I'm interested in. And I have a very big support system too, as a community organizer, a volunteer, a student, a friend, and as family. So I know I can always reach out to any of those support systems whenever I need to. I hope you were able to hear me. I know it's pretty loud out here.
We did, thank you. So really speaking to the idea of having a support system, right? That protective factor, that those caring adults that are in your life as well. And then it sounds like this intentional wellness, having those conversations and then being able to debrief from those conversations is very helpful for you as well. Thank you, Luna. Other thoughts? Tian?
Yeah. So I personally love listening to music. It's something I do all the time. And as I mentioned earlier, staying organized is a really big thing for me. And as Luna mentioned, the taking breaks and just giving yourself time to remember that you're a person before you're a mentor, before you're a leader, X title, X title, X title, you are a person and you need to take time to care for yourself.
Thank you, Tian. So simple, and a reminder to every adult on this call that you too are a person. So take that break for all of us as well. Mohammed, I don't want to cut you off from answering this question.
Yeah, so I'm a swimmer, so I enjoy being in the water and exercising a lot too. I like going outside, hanging out with friends outside too. And I also like to watch funny videos online just to take a step back and relax from and try to numb my mind for a little bit when I need to, especially after like a long day at school.
Yeah, that's great. And I appreciate the variety of how all three of you were different in thinking about what self-care looks like for you. And recognizing that's probably the same for even your friends, right? So how does that look in that self-care is never going to be the same, and just reminding ourselves to be intentional about it. So thank you for sharing that, right? Being active, listening to music, and then also thinking about who do we ask for support from as well. So let's, in thinking about our own mental health. So Luna shared that she has people that are already part of her own support system. Mohammed and Tian, do you mind weighing in on this one? Who are the people that you turn to for support?
I guess it'd have to be my close friends, maybe some of my own mentors too that I work with in my mental health groups as well. They're the people I would reach out to.
Okay, so more friends and other adults in the program. Tian?
Yeah, I'd also have to say my mentors, my friends, Miss Esther. I'd hate to put her on blast, but she's on the call. I go to her all the time for anything I need. She's always a great help. So yeah, just adults that are like trustworthy and can be helpful in situations that I need help.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful, Tian. Let's get those flowers while we can, right? So Esther, we appreciate you. And hopefully Luna and Mohammed, you remind the individuals that are supporting you how helpful they are. Because I know as a mentor and a coach myself, I like to know that I am making a difference. So by all means, please let those caring adults know. So let's go back to you and your role when thinking about being a peer mentor. And Tina, I'll start with you. You said that this is something that you really enjoy doing. What has this process of becoming a peer mentor been for you, and why? What is so rewarding about this experience?
Okay, this experience more than anything has been a great learning experience. I feel like I've grown so much since becoming a mentor, just because it gives me, I don't know, I don't want to say a responsibility because that almost seems like a burden, but it's not. It's such a great thing. And the relationship that I built with my mentees is really about reciprocity. Like it's mutually beneficial, even though it may not seem like that at first from mentee. It's really great. One of the most rewarding aspects is every Tuesday or every other Tuesday, seeing my mentees. They're hilarious. They always bring a smile to my face, even if it's like, Tuesday, I have all this homework to do. I was at school all day. I'm exhausted. Seeing them just brings this like joy to my day that I absolutely live for. And it's always amazing spending time with them.
So I appreciate the smile that you had just talking about it. So I know that you really do enjoy this. Mohammed, do you want to answer? And then Luna, I'll come to you.
Yeah, sure. So my interest like around mental health has been sparked recently just by all like the negative stigma around it, even though it's been increasing. So that phenomenon really drove me towards working like around it and seeing how like what I could do to help destigmatize it. And I enjoyed like with Work to Be Well, it really like opened up my eyes to like the amount of people who were interested in it. And I really enjoyed working with those driven people who were very intelligent as well, and who brought up very unique ideas and ideas in general to help combat this stigma around mental health and to help improve the quality of our lives. Yeah.
Awesome. I love the value of making a difference and becoming an advocate for mental health as part of your response there. Luna?
Yes, hi. As someone with lived mental health experiences, I know I'm using my story to provide hope to my peers and help them also seek, I'm helping these people who are seeking support or seeking advice. So, they have any questions, I'm like, okay, feel free to ask me. And I offer guidance, I offer resources and real life experiences, like I said, to help them navigate this.
Awesome. So the rewards are the growth, the opportunity to share, the ability to help others feel validated in this experience as well, which are fantastic ways to say that this is something that has been rewarding for you, while also serving other people. So as there's just a few more questions that we identified that we wanted to share. So I am going to shortly give others on the call a chance to unmute and to ask questions of our young people as well. You can also feel free to add those to the chat here, and I'll be happy to read them off as well if you're unable to unmute, but just to give you guys a chance to prepare for what that may be. This next question here is when we think about, again, this idea of all the people that came in today to hear from the three of you and have your youth voice and to understand the perspective of a young person right now who is helping their friends and peers as leaders in every capacity that you represent. What are the things that we as caring adults can do, whether that's in your school or at programs, to support you individually, but then also to be more supportive of you and your peers as a whole? And I'm specifically thinking about that mental well-being piece. So what are the things that we can do to be more supportive for you individually or your peers as a whole when thinking about mental well-being?
I guess I'll speak. Don't talk at us, just talk with us, listen to us. Don't avoid current events either, bring them up. Don't police our languages and actually seek to enhance all languages and dialects. Because what we need is an inclusive environment where we feel safe and respected, where we have autonomy and actually know us, like get to know us, know our names and our personal pronouns especially too. And listen to us, listen to our stories. Yeah, go from there.
Good stuff, Luna. Thank you. Listen to you, learn you, and then don't shy away from those current events. I know I've been guilty of that. Like, should we talk about this today? And then I'm the first one in the meeting. Well, I heard something happened at school today. Who wants to tell me what happened? So thank you for reminding us to not shy away from those things. Tian or Mohammed?
I guess say have an open mind, try and understand like what we go through on a daily basis and like how it's different than what you may have gone through as teenagers. Because especially with like the onset of COVID, we are living like completely different lives than conventional, possibly normal ones than before. And like Luna said, yeah, try to talk with us, not always at us, and try to like be engaged with us too.
Mohammed, that's awesome. I jokingly was talking with my young people earlier in the week, and I was getting ready to refer to like back in the day when I used to walk to school in the snow, and I was like, that doesn't help, right? You don't have those experiences and you're not walking to school. So yeah, really remembering that just culturally, because of our age, we're different, not even because of the way somebody may look, but the fact that our lived experiences are way different. And we can't always say that we understand because we really don't. And it's better to just hear your thoughts than to assume. So thank you for that reminder. Tian?
Yeah, I agree with everything that was already said. And I'd just like to add that one of the best things that I think would be beneficial is modeling leadership. As was already mentioned, the ability to show empathy and really connect with the people that you're speaking with. I think this is already said, but really listening. I'm always told by my mom that there's a difference between hearing somebody and actually listening to what they're saying. And to actually be listening is way more powerful. And I think that should definitely take place.
Yeah, thank you, Tim. And I think the points that were made earlier about us trying to listen for if you want advice versus when you just want to vent. And that's the really powerful part of just listening, is sometimes you just want to vent. But recognizing that we did hear all your voices as unique. All three of you, I asked the same question and you all had different responses to it. And I think that's the most beautiful part about this panel, is that you all were able to pull something different based on your own perspectives and lived experiences. So again, humbly thank you for being here and sharing. So this time, recognizing that we are coming close to the end, and I want to make sure that those of you that tuned in today have time to share. I don't see anything in the chat. Does anybody want to unmute and ask questions of our young people?
Sophia, there is a question in the chat about bullying, that many of us on the call have worked with people who are being bullied. Is that a problem that you commonly encounter in your work? And what general advice do you give to these mentees?
Yeah, so at Work to Be Well, we have curriculum directed for victims of bullying, for like mentors too around who experience, and adults who experience bullying occurring in around them, and like how to help those who are victims of it. And it like especially relates to like what the cause of bullying is, whether it be race, class, gender identity, all of these things. We have specific resources targeted towards them. Yeah.
Phenomenal, thank you.
There's another question from Robin. How does a teen find information on becoming a mentor?
Yeah, so I guess that's, how did you three find out about these opportunities?
I found out through my school, because I'm involved with Stand Together. It networked out, and since we partner with so many organizations, it kind of just got to me, and I was like, oh, there's an application to be a peer mentor, and I'm like, okay, that's awesome. And then I applied, and then I participated in the trainings, and then here I am. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like you found out about these experiences on your own. No one shared the information with you, Luna. Okay, got it. And then Tina, I saw you were going to unmute.
Yeah, actually, for me, my experience is a little bit different. I was actually in the program already. Well, not the leadership program, but the program I'm in, when you come in, you're giving a peer mentor as a freshman. So you're the mentee. And then as a junior, you're able to apply to be a peer mentor. And I loved my peer mentor so much. She actually just graduated. It was overall a great experience for me. So I chose to be a peer mentor for that reason.
What an awesome opportunity to give back, right? To have received and now be able to extend that gift. Thank you, Tia, for that experience. Mohammed, do you have a different experience or the same? I just want to hear your voice.
Sure. In terms of like finding out, I was in a class called Positive Psychology, and I loved my teacher in it. He's the one who opened up my interest in mental health in the first place. And then he told me about Work to Be Well and the application as well. And then from there, the other programs were presented as other opportunities from the networking.
Gotcha. Thank you.
We have another question, Sophia. What is something important you feel you've learned from this mentoring experience? In your own words, why would you encourage someone else to become a mentor?
From my mentor experience, I've really learned that everybody's different. I have 5 different mentees, each from different backgrounds, and they each have really different personalities. and they're all amazing, but I learned to do what my mom has always told me and really listen to people rather than just hearing them and making not judgments, but implementing your whatever onto them. You have to really just listen to people for what they're saying and take it as it is. And I would encourage someone to become a mentor by saying that you have something to offer. Everybody's different and you have something special and unique that you bring to the table in a mentoring partnership. And I think that should be valued and cherished. And I think you should not be afraid to share that.
Some of the rewarding experiences I've had as being like a leader in some of my organizations is just all the experiences you can have with other people, all the information you can find out, all the opportunities you receive and that you can share with others too. And just finding your passion about certain topics. You don't have to do everything that comes your way, but certain topics might strike your interest. And I'd encourage people to try and be a mentor, again, because of all the experience they can gain, talking to different people, learning about all the unique stories, what they're doing currently to combat mental health illnesses, what they're doing to improve themselves and what they're doing to help improve the lives of others. All of that is so rewarding, which is one of the benefits of being a mentor.
And Robin has her hand up.
I'm assuming that this is a volunteer, like there's no, do you all receive stipends to encourage you, gift cards, be a love of passion for you all?
For me, it's just a passion thing. Besides the experience, I don't really receive any type of other benefits from it.
Yeah, no, I don't get anything like any stipends out of it. I just do it for the experiences and opportunity it gives.
Can I redirect that? Because it's not the financial rewards to come, as I'm hearing you all say, but you're receiving a whole lot in terms of payment because you're uplifting yourself, you're uplifting the community. You three are powerful. You're powerful.
Thank you.
Yeah, I echo that. And that was mentioned in the chat too, in case you're not seeing it. Heather mentioned all three of you are amazing young people, and I'm confident that you are making a difference in others' lives. Please keep up the great work. I was inspired when our meeting last week of how engaged all three of you are, and the fact that you're still active as young people and the things that you would do outside of this. So just excited to be a part of this experience with you all today, and the growth that you're going to have as individuals separately as well. So again, thank you again for taking the time to share with us today. That might be a powerful note to end on. But if there are additional questions, I don't want anybody's voice to not be heard. So I will briefly pause, but I'm going to go back to sharing our screen just to bring our conversation to a slow close here. Sorry, I always do this to myself. I lost the PowerPoint. Again, just a thank you again, Luna, Muhammad, and Tian, for your excellence as young people, the ways that you are motivating and empowering your peers, and then your many wishes to your own continued success, and prayers for your own mental health. Continue to do the things that are healthy for you, and then take care of yourself first. We can remain on the call just for a little bit longer, just because we had all planned on that. But I definitely want to say thank you all for tuning in today. Just a reminder, as Carol said at the top of today's session, we do have our bonus session on Friday, April 29th from 9 to 11 a.m., which will be with Still Smiling. And then our final session of this original four-part series is going to be on Friday, May 13th from 9 to 11, where we'll address physical and mental health. We have Partners from 8099 Solutions will be on the call to really talk about the value of, again, what that looks like to be a student athlete, as well as also addressing mental health. So we look forward to that call. And then as you see on the screen, we really want to hear how this series has been helpful for you. What are some other topics we can address, be thinking of, and what are your takeaways? So if you could scan this QR code, it'll also be part of the wrap up that will be shared. But please let us know your thoughts on any of the three conversations. What have been your takeaways, especially from today, and what we can do more as we continue to collaborate the Mentoring Partnership and the Jewish Healthcare Foundation to support you, your programs, and your young people. So with that said, I will stop sharing and give us a chance to say goodbye to people's faces, or ask more questions if you want to and need to.
Thank you so much. I have to hop off. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Luna.
You guys did an amazing job. Thank you for coming.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sorry, I accidentally hit the button too soon.
You're fine.